The 5-month-long hour of temptation won't begin until the woe of the fifth trumpet, which is when Satan and his angels will be cast from heaven to earth, and this is also when the 4 stages of the locust army begin, because the locust army written of in the book of Joel as well as Revelation chapter 9 are exclusively supernatural, and as you can see pointed out on page 1225 of the Companion Bible, the 4 stages of the locust army are first the gnawer, then the swarmer, then the devourer, and the first 3 stages would all have to happen during the first 2.5 months of the 5-month-long hour of temptation, in my opinion, with the 4th and final stage, which is the consumer stage, not beginning until the woe of the 6th trumpet, which is when Satan appears as the Antichrist, and that's when most Christians will be killed spiritually because of the images of Satan and his angels that will be transmitted throughout the globe onto all the television, smartphone, and computer screens, appearing to be an innumerable multitude when there are really only 7,000 fallen angels, as we know from the 13th verse of Revelation 11, which parallels Joel chapter 2 verse 10, which says, "The earth shall quake before them, because just before the 7th angel sounds and the true Christ returns, the fallen angels will be destroyed in the earthquake," written of in Revelation 11:13. "The heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining, because the brightness of the true Christ upon his return at the woe of the 7th trumpet will outshine the sun, moon, and stars, as it's also written in Isaiah chapter 13 verse 10. And the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great, because the armies which were in heaven that will return with Jesus at the 7th trumpet are the positive, and the 7,000 fallen angels who will get blotted out of existence just before the 7th angel sounds are the negative. For he is strong that executeth his word, for the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? The day of the Lord being the 1,000-year-long great tribulation that begins when the true Christ returns at the woe of the 7th trumpet. So now to rewind back to the woe of the 5th trumpet, when the 4 stages of the locust army begin, starting with the gnawer stage, it's within the realm of possibility that the arrival of the fallen angels at that time will be depicted as an alien invasion, which might be why the one world political system will come together so quickly at that time. And if so, the gnawer stage might have to do with what will happen in the foreheads of the inhabitants of the earth, specifically in the foreheads of most Christians, because obviously they'll be wondering why these so-called aliens have arrived. In other words, it'll gnaw at them, which, as you can see in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, means, when speaking metaphorically, to be a source of worry or concern to someone. For example, this problem has been gnawing at me day and night. Remember, the main target of the deception of the locust army is specifically the Christians, because the first 3 stages during the first 2.5 months lead up to the 4th and final stage, which is when most Christians will be killed spiritually when they begin worshiping Satan instead of Christ, which is what Antichrist means. The fallen angels will have flying vehicles at that time, as you can see in Revelation 9:9 as well as Joel chapter 2 verse 5. Time will tell whether or not we'll actually see these vehicles at that time, but it would make sense that a supposed alien invasion would cause a one-world government to come into being almost overnight. And remember, Daniel's 4th beast is exclusively supernatural, and all 4 of the beasts in Daniel chapter 7 will rise up together at the same time at the woe of the 5th trumpet as the so-called New World Order. So then following the gnawer stage is the swarmer stage, which could mean a swarm of theories as to what's actually happening at that time, all the talking heads of the mainstream media telling the public what to think about these so-called aliens being on Earth. Maybe this is speculation, but then following the swarmer stage is the devourer stage, and devour can even mean to take in greedily with the eyes, ears, or mind, which is what's in the forehead. So then by that point, most Christians will have bought into enough of the deception to then be able to be killed spiritually when the consumer stage begins at 666, the 6th seal, the 6th trumpet, and the 6th vial. Remember, only Christians can die spiritually, but also remember that the one world political system will be wounded to death, as you can see in Revelation 13, and that'll most likely happen just before Satan appears as the Antichrist, so it could even be the first 3 stages of the locust army, or at least in part what triggers the revolt against the one world system, which is what the deadly wound is. Remember, it's a wound moon to one of the 7 heads, which are symbolic of the 7 continents of the planet Earth. So then one or more of the countries on one of the 7 continents will declare independence from the one world political system, and then Satan will appear as the Antichrist at the woe of the 6th trumpet and heal the deadly wound, because those who were rebelling against the so-called New World Order will cease to rebel against it if they think Jesus has returned, as most Christians will at that time when the 4th and final stage of the Locust Army begins, which is the consumer stage. That's when it goes from being a one-world political system to a one-world religious system, when the images of Satan and his angels will appear on all the television, smartphone, and computer screens in the middle of Daniel's 70th week, which was 7 years but is now 5 months.